Hello folks, this is video number 37 in a playlist that's devoted to the 3D Experience CATIA generated shape design application. This particular playlist is called the Surface Tab playlist because there's another one which are called Wireframe, and there will be other tabs and playlists will be created for them too. Uh, Is it the particular item that we're going to be looking at is the adaptive sweep icon, and it's an advanced functionality when you are in the generative shape design screen. The ribbon at the bottom of the screen looks like so. And notice that the one that we're dealing with, the surface tab, already I have done for the wireframe tab. As I mentioned, these things are also playlists for these other tabs are going to be created also. So when you're in the surface tab, you have access to the sweep and adaptive sweep. And we're discussing adaptive sweep right now. When you click on this thing, that dialog box appears, and there is some help in the online help, but it's not quite, it's not very user friendly. Now, this particular, now I already did the basics in video number 36, and this actually comes from that video, and it's courtesy of R2026x. So essentially, the whole idea behind, let me go to this one first. The whole idea behind adaptive sweep is that a sweep process is done, a surface that can adapt to changing dimensions of the parent profile along the defined path. When you do regular sweep, the parent profile does not change, the same thing. But in adaptive sweep, that parent profile, as the sweep is taking place, can change dimensions. So the steps are a constrained sketch profile is swept along a guide curve. So notice that you need a sketch profile, and it's fully constrained both in terms of dimension and position in this sketch that you're drawing, and it's going to be swept along a guide curve. And the surface um, uh, is computed or swept respecting those constraints and dimension. And obviously, that means that you can vary the cross section by defining the particular constraint and dimension at different positions along the guide curve. So that's what this thing means. Number 3 means that we can specify specific dimensions along at user section, at sections that we're going to define, and that's how adaptively it adjusts as it's being swept. And yeah, so that's what 3 and 4 are pretty much same thing. The one thing we have to be careful here is that the initial profile, that initial parent profile that you define, must be normal to the guide curve, which is by default taken as the spine. It doesn't have to, but if you just select the guide curve, and it's going to be taken, that guide curve is going to be selected as the spine. Now, let me go back here. So we go back there. So the steps are: start creation of the adaptive sweep feature, select the guide curve. This is the guide curve that we select. Okay. It's also going to be used as a spine, and you specify different places. These are user sections. Okay. And this is my initial profile that has to be perpendicular to the guide curve, by the way. And we control the dimensions at these locations that we specify, and then we do the sweep process. And we just went through this one before. Now, so there are few things that you have to worry about, and I mentioned those in uh, video 36, which was the basics. So the two simple examples there. But the important things are, first of all, when you create your initial profile, you if you have to find the intersection of the profile with the guide curve or with any other guide curve, any guide curves, then you need to use while you're in the sketcher. While you're in the sketcher, you need to use intersect 3D elements. So within the ribbon for the sketcher, there is the intersect 3D element. You need to use this to find the points that find the intersection of the guide curve or curves with the sketch. Okay, it's very important. Now, don't use this because there is also another intersection, but it's not in the sketcher. This is not in the sketcher. This thing that you see here is not in the sketcher. It's actually in the for example the wireframe. You're gonna find it there. Don't use that. Within the sketcher, you have to use intersect 3D elements. And once you do that, make sure before you try to do adaptive sweep, turn those points into construction elements. Okay, that's a mistake that I made in video 36, and in the first video I forgot to do that, and notice I got that error message. So I had to go back to the sketch and turn those two intersection points, which are obtained by this, into constructions. Now, I'm using in the first example in this video, I'm using the one from this source, the one that you see over here, actually specifically. And the one for CATIA V5, these are all for CATIA V5. The one by Rand 3D is very good. And the second example is going to be coming out of this this reference. Okay. Again, all of these are done for CATIA V5. We adjust them to be done with 3D Experience. All right, so let's do that. Okay, here we are in the interface for 3D Experience, and the first example that I'm going to be doing is actually coming from that source that I mentioned, and I have a half a an arc of a circle here, which I wanted to be swept along these two guide curves. See that? There's one over there and one over there, and we're gonna constrain that arc of a circle to move along these two. It's going to be constrained, and then at different position, 4 positions here, I'm going to specify my own, or 3 positions, I'm going to specify my own dimension, radius of that arc. So let's go ahead and do that. On that horizontal plane, I will sketch a line. This doesn't have to be a line. It can actually be a spline or any arc. It can even be 3D, a 3D uh, curve. But these are going to be my guide curves. So let me draw a line like that right here. So this is going to be one of the guide curves. Okay, I may have to change these things later on if needed. Okay, and then on the same plane, but a different sketch, of course. I'm going to draw a spline. That's it. So I have 2 guide curves essentially. This is one of them, the line, and this is the spline. As I said, this did not have to be a line, but that's okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I will create my sketch as something perpendicular to that line. So let me create a point on this line first. So, well, it's okay. I don't need a point. So let me go ahead in wireframe, and I'm going to create a plane, and the plane is going to be normal to a curve, and normal to a curve. The curve is right here. Okay, and the location of the point, I'm going to make it. I didn't make it initially the point. By default, it puts it in the center. So that fellow does not go all the way to the end. He could have, but he does somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to say right click, create a point on a curve, on this curve, and that location. All right. So notice that the plane has been created here. But when creation of the plane, notice that there is a point that's hidden. Okay, it was hidden. If you want, you can bring it back. There we are, but I don't need it. So I'm going to hide it. I could have done the point at the beginning and gone from that point on. Now, what I'm going to do, notice that this sketch will actually also intersect that plane because I need to do that. If not, then I will have to extend this thing so it does. If it doesn't, it's not quite clear. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. So that being the case, let me go to my sketch 2 and extend it a little bit so that in all likelihood it will intersect it now. Good, it does. Very good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to that plane. See that? That plane. And we're going to find the intersection. Do we draw a sketch? There's a sketch here, sketch there. Now we're going to find the intersection of this plane that this sketch that I'm creating with these 3D curves. Okay. So that's what this thing is. Look, this fellow, it says go to the sketch, use 3D element, and find the intersection that way. Okay, so where is this thing? Let's go find it. Go here, right there. You see this? 3D elements. All right. So we're gonna have to do that twice. So first with this one, and you say okay. Notice that a point has been created right off there. I'm going to change the color of this so that you can see it better in a minute. But then again, you find the intersection of this with that other curve. So one more time, intersect 3D element, this element, this curve, with that, oh yeah, so with the, essentially we don't have to select anything, element with the plane, sketcher plane, we say okay. Notice that 2 points have been created here. Let me go and change the color of these two. Right click properties so that we can see it better. Graphics. Let me go to graphics. Okay, so let me do it differently. Cancel that. Because I want to change the color of that, but I'm not sure whether it can be done from here or not. But that's okay. Let's leave it like this. So whenever we need it, we can use it right there. You can see that. Okay. But I do want to change the color. So let me see. Oh, maybe put the cursor on marker. That's right, not on the intersection. Right click, properties. Oh yeah, graphics. Now we're going to change the color to, let me make it, instead of yellow that I can't see, I'm going to make it blue. And let me also change the sign of it to square, and change the size of it. I think the size of it can be done one of these things. Well, it looks like the size may be, yeah, I don't think you can change the size. That's okay. You say all right. You see that? There's this blue dot there. And do the same thing for this other fellow. I was trying to do it for intersection branch, but it has to be done with mark. So right click properties, and turn it into the blue and turn it into square. There we are. So that we can see it better. Now, so what we're going to do when we create that arc that I want to, that arc that I want to constrain to move along that, I use these points. And don't forget that once you're done, turn them into construction. Okay, so let's look at the 3-point arc. So let's see now, sketch. Let's find the 3-point arc here. 3-point arc right there. So I'm going to select this point, a point here, and a point there. Okay. All right. So because these points are on the intersection point, this is completely constrained to move along that. And I'm going to select the dimension of this arc. So that it's going to be fully constrained. So let's, yeah, that's why you can see that it's all green. I'll just leave it the way it is. That's good. Okay, very good. Excellent. Now, I'm going to turn these into construction. So I select this and turn it to construction, and select this and turn it to construction. This is one thing that I forgot to do in video 36 when I was trying to do the first example. Okay, so, but I went and fixed it, of course. Exit. Very good. So what you see here is essentially this figure, this kind of a figure. Okay, so now we're gonna go, before I do that, this is what I did. The last thing that I did, do not forget turn the intersection point into construction element. Okay, so I go here to the surface and we go to the adaptive sweep. Okay, and let's see what it says. Guide curve. Okay, this is the guide curve. This is my guide curve. And automatically it uses that as the spine. You can see that immediately it will, and it automatically uses reference surface associated with this default spine, which is the mean plane. In the second example, mean plane means something. Let's not worry about it. But in the second example, I'm going to be having a surface that actually I'm going to use that, but not in this example. Now, let's look at let's select the sketch. We have to select the sketch. The sketch is the one that I made, that 3-point arc right there. And let's see what happens. Notice that a section has been created right here. And if I say preview, it's going to give me this. Okay, let me say okay. Right there. Okay, good. Now, what I want to do is change this dimension along several points, on several points along this line. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some points here, a few points. Okay, so back to the wireframe, point on a curve, this curve. I'm going to create one over there, another one, uh, on a curve right there, right, say that point, this thing out of the way, this point, okay, okay, one more, maybe, well, yeah, one more on this side, on the back side, okay. So point on a curve, on this curve, right up there. Okay, very good. Now, double click on the adaptive swap that you created. Okay. Now, notice that this was the initial point. Initial point means that, remember that intersection point that I hit it later on. But I want to do another one. That was right here, right? I want to do another one. Now, notice that unfortunately, because these points were created after adaptive sweep, I cannot pick them. So what I'm going to do, I forgot. You say, okay, no problem. Let me move these 3 points. Let me move these 3 points. Let me move these 3 points, reorder them, move them up. So I'm going to say right click, reorder, put it after, let's say, after this sketch, after the sketch. And then I say, okay. Notice that they moved here so that when I double click on adaptive sweep, now I can go and select these points. So first point is this. Notice that a section has been created right there. You see this? Right there. And another one is going to be created at number 4, right there. And another one is going to be created at number 5, which was back there. Now, these will all have the same dimensions as the initial one that I created. If you select the parameter, this is section 1 that I created, remember 204? You go to section 2, well, you can make it smaller or bigger. I'll make it 250. Remember, don't put meaningless numbers here because, for example, if you put a radius which is very small, it's not going to be able to do it. Okay? Meaningful. And then another one, section 3. I can go back to that. And section 4, well, actually, let me change this thing to 300. 300. How about that? Okay. And the last one is way back there. How about making that thing 190? If it doesn't work, we go fix these things. Okay. Now, if I say preview, it will redo this surface, but with those constraints that I'm putting there as far as dimension is concerned. As long as those numbers, as long as it's doable, because as I said, if you put a number that it just cannot create the surface, it won't do it. So let's preview it. There. Okay. So it looks like it was happy with what we did. Yep. Notice that this was the initial one. Then I did a point here and a point there and a point there and a point there. Let's say okay. Now, if you can't see it, that's because you're in there. Make this thing in work. Define in work object right there. Let's go and change these things. Let's go and change these. For example, we go here. Let me go and the last section, which is over there, the section over here, let me change the number. Let's change it to, let me make this thing 100 and pray that it works. I don't know. Preview. See that? Let me go to section 2 and make this thing also say 120. Preview. It did. You see that? You see? 120. Let me actually make it bigger. Let me bigger meaning bulgier. So I'll make it 90. Preview. There. And then we say okay. A very powerful tool. I'm going to hide these planes. I don't want to see them, so I'm going to hide them. Hide them. And this plane also, the initial one, hide. Okay, you can see that. So nice. This you can hide these, and same idea about delimitation and things like that works, of course. We're not going to do that. There we are, and there we go. So you can see that my adaptively swept sketch was swept along that and changing the dimensions at specific user sections that I created. Now, you can go and create other section. If you go back here, you can go and add more points. Okay? If you had already created them, select them. Otherwise, remember the same thing is going to happen. If you create it after that, you may not see it here. You have to send it up there and proceed. Very powerful tool. This is the relimitation here. You can show the stuff between two specific points, relimited point or planes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is example, my first example here, but the second example is going to come from this source. Okay. Okay, my second example is going to be something that, let me show you what I have in mind. Something that's similar to this problem that's coming from that uh, bottom reference from Central Michigan University. So basically, I have a surface here, the blue one, and on it I have a curve, which I'm going to use as my guide curve, which obviously lies on that surface, and then a profile like that, something like this, which is going to be swept along that guide curve, as you'll see. And I specify the dimension, change the dimensions at different user sections. Okay. So it's not exactly the same problem, but same flavor. Okay, so let me go ahead here. First thing I'm going to do is to create a surface. So on that vertical plane, I will sketch. I'll draw a spline here because I'm gonna extrude this to get a surface, arbitrary surface. So extrude it. Let me see. So I'll make it 200. See how it looks like. Sure. Let me make it 250. Okay. So there it is. This is my surface. That fellow's surface is more complicated than this, but that really doesn't have to be like that because the same thing, the same process that works for this works for the other fellow. Now, I want to create a curve on that surface. So to do that, let me go to this plane, draw something kind of arbitrary that I want, maybe another spline here. Okay, good. All right, exit. Now that curve is not on that surface, but I can always project it. So let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and project it. So we go to wireframe. Here's the project. Project. It doesn't matter whether you want to do it along Z direction or normal. It doesn't matter. I'll do it along Z direction. So this is going to be my projected, and the support is that surface, and I'm going to do it in the Z direction. There we are. So I don't need this thing. I'm going to hide this. So I have this curve on that surface. Now remember, I want to define different user sections. So I might as well, to avoid that business of reordering the points so that it goes above the sweep. So let me do the following. Let me go ahead and make three or four points on this. Okay. So let me point. So I'll do it on a curve. On that curve, let me do a point here. This is where I'm going to draw my sketch in a few minutes. Let me do another one. On this curve, same curve at a different location, maybe over here. Is it okay? Did I do it? Can't remember. Oh, let me actually change that thing. Let me move it to a different location. I don't like the place that I put it in there, so cancel that. Where is that point? It says length 0. That's not what I wanted. Let me make the length bigger. We make it hundreds. See, right there. Okay, for some accidentally I put 0 there. That's why it ended up at this endpoint. Let me do one more. So another point. Well, actually, for this problem, I'm going to use this as the last one. All I did was a 1 point here. I'm going to define my sketch here at this location, and then 1 point here, and the very beginning and the very end. So that's okay. We don't need that. Now, to draw my sketch, I need the sketch to be normal to the guide curve. This is going to be my guide curve, okay? So I'm going to do a plane normal to a curve. There's the curve, and at that location. There we are. Okay, good. And let me remind you that we need this. This is the point that I'm going to hide because later on when I draw my sketch there, I have to find 3D element intersection, not intersection this point. So let me hide this. That's point number 1. I'm going to hide that. Okay, now you go to this plane to draw your sketch. Sketch. Now, let's find the 3D intersection point. So, where is that? 3D element. So, element to intersect is going to be that curve. And we say, okay, notice that a point has been created right there. You can see that right there, right there. And what we're going to do, remember last time what I did, I changed the color of that. And I can do that here too, but let me see now here. Let me do that. Marker, right click, properties. I'm going to change the color to blue, and change this thing to a symbol that I can see it better. And we say, okay, good, right there. Now, we're going to make that profile that I want. So for example, where is the view from the front? Normal view right there. Now I'm going to draw my sketch profile. So let me use, for example, a profile like this, starting at, well, it doesn't have to be at that location. Let me do the following. Let me draw some sketch. Uh, circle. All right. Let's see what we did here. We drew that circle. We say okay. So all right. So let me go ahead and create a line between this point and that. Okay, so let's do a line between this point and that. I'm going to turn into construction right there, and another line from this point to that, and turn it in construction. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to dimension that circle right there. Oops. There. Fine, that's the center of the circle. And let's give these angles here. So for example, the angle between this line and the axis here. So dimension between this and that. So that's going to give us the angle. And another one with this line and that line. This and that. Okay. Very good. And finally, yeah. Yeah. So this sketch is fully constrained, uh, except that that center point with respect to this is not. So let me go ahead and create a dimension between this point and that. Oh, good. So exit. Let's go and do an adaptive sweep. So we go here to surface, adaptive sweep. The guide curve this is the guide curve, and automatically the spine is selected as that. And notice that it automatically took for reference surface, took that extruded surface because it recognized that curve is on that surface. Now, let's do it. The sketch. The sketch is the one that I created over here. Okay. Let's do a quick preview, see how it looks like. There we are. Oh, you know what I did? Remember I said, do not forget to turn that point into construction. That's what this message says. That's what it. So we say cancel. Let's go back to that sketch, back to that sketch, back to that sketch, that marker point, turn it into construction. Remember, I forgot this thing again. So that's what I did. exit, and let's do an adaptive sweep now. Guide curve is here. Correct spine is selected, project 1, and the correct surface is selected, which is the surface where that curve lies in. And now the sketch is right here. The sketch is the one that we created. And if I say preview, I better get surface. There we are. There we are. Look. There we are. Now, let's do the following. Let's go back here and start adding user sections to it. So what do I mean by that? Remember these points that we created? These points that we created? So this is the one that was there. Let's do another one. I created a point. How many points did I create? I can't remember. Let's try this point 2. Oh yeah, right there. It's over there. Remember? Now let me go ahead and change those, and remember those angles? That's up to me. So for example, I can say this is 50 degrees, and this is, I don't know, 20 degrees. And the radius, remember, 21, whatever I put originally. So let's make it 50 and pray. See? Let's do another one. Go back to the section. If you select this endpoint, it'll put a section there. So for example, I'll keep these the same. I'll keep these the same for parameters. I'll keep it exactly what I had a minute ago, the original one. And let's go to the very last section, which is over here. I want to make one over there, but on purpose, I'm going to make the parameters here. Maybe this make it the 50. I'll keep these angles the same. Preview. Wow. So under transform, you see the trim. Let's see. This surface with that. See how it looks like. Preview. You can do complicated stuff with this. Very complicated stuff. This is why it's an advanced functionality. And yeah, have fun.